Last time, you've already started talking about some of the choices within limits. I don't know how the choices went this week around your place.
Good.
Besides the ones that they gave you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't have much of a choice anymore. No, they went really well. I tried the tactic of, well, see, haven't you been making a lot of choices? Now it's my turn. He just didn't want to agree to that.
He didn't think you had enough choices yet. Huh?
No,
That's all right.
We hadn't accrued enough in the bank yet.
Well, and sometimes you just have to take the withdrawal, even though they don't agree that the balance sheet's right. But that's all right.
And we moved the Osong place from his room to somewhere else. So.
Oh yeah.
He's got a lot of toys. He's a spoiled kid. He's an only grandchild as well as being an only kid.
Yeah,
we figured out the room real quick was not going to work.
That's a recipe for something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I need to tell you about Jamin and Bryn. Y'all may know the Spears family. They used to be here at Green Lawn. They're over at Sunset. But they had two children, Jamin and Bryn. And I'm trying to think. I think Jamin was older. He's the son, and then Bryn, the daughter. Think about Jamin and Bryn. They were given choices a lot too. And the Spears didn't even do Love and Logic. I mean, some of this you just do because it's nothing new. And so whenever they were, especially teenagers, they used to get really irritated because Charles and Kara would never give them the rules that they wanted. And what I mean by that is, for example, remember last week we talked about that problem separation where you give a lecture and still get away with it, where you say, what do you think about this issue? And then you listen to them for a while. Well, can I tell you what I think about it? And then you tell them some facts about it. Then you say, well, what do you want me to do if you choose the wrong thing? And this is what I will do. Well, they, when it came to things like curfew or things like use of the car and some things like that, they would sit down with them and, they would go up to mom and dad and say, hey, what time do we have to be back tonight? Well, Charles would never give them a straight answer. He would say, well, where are you going? And how long do you think it'll take? How long do you need to be out? What happens whenever you give a curfew to a kid, regardless of whether they need to be out that long or not?
Yeah. They want more.
They want more, and they'll at least milk it all the way, to the point. Well, they figured that out. And so they told him, well, you tell me, how long do you need tonight? Well, what kind of a curfew would be good for you? And Jamin and Bryn used to get really irritated, he said, because they wouldn't just lay down the rules and say, be here at 10:30 or be here at midnight on the weekends. Now, they always want to know, I want you to help me make these decisions. You got choices here. Well, that was until they went off to college. And Bryn, in particular, went to a state school. And she called back one day and she told mom, she said, you used to drive me crazy with all those choices and not telling me the rules. She said, thank you for what you didn't do. And Kara was curious, what do you mean? She said, well, I'm in a dorm here with all these girls. They don't know how to set good limits for themselves. They stay out all night. They stay up all night. They don't do their homework. They don't take care of their rooms. They don't do this. And they don't have any self-discipline. She said, at least we learned self-discipline because of the choices that we had to make all along the way. And so even though it may not seem like the choices are always working, they kick in because they understand as the price gets bigger in life, how the choices become bigger as well. Well, tonight we're going to ask this question about when your kids say, whatever. I don't know, the kids still say whatever.
Yeah.
Of course I do. Yeah. It's no big deal, no problem, whatever. And so we're going to talk about this idea of when kids don't seem to think something is big and why that might be. I want to remind us of a passage from Matthew chapter 7, where Jesus told that parable about the wise and foolish builder. And he kept talking about, the choices that are made in life, and especially what you base those choices on. And he says, when the rains came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it didn't fall because it had its foundation on a rock. And what I find interesting about what Jesus says is he does not say, if the winds blow and if the storms come and if the problems come, it's a matter of when. And so for us as parents, this becomes a really important need that we feel as parents, to help our kids learn how to weather those storms of life and how to successfully navigate those things. Unfortunately, there's a lot of parents out there that are robbing their kids of that opportunity. And we're going to talk about it in terms of ownership of the problem. Parents and kids need to be able to determine who has a problem when those problems come up. You know, parents that like to take on every problem that their kid has, one way or the other. You know, a kid's struggling with something, and so the parent decides they've got to solve it, they've got to take care of it. Well, that's kind of what we're talking about here, because those kids get robbed of a wonderful opportunity to learn how to work through and deal with their problems. It's kind of like Dennis the Menace here. He says, I think we're in pretty deep, Dewey. And that's what we want our kids to understand. From time to time, they get themselves in pretty deep, and there are things that they need to do to be able to get themselves out. But there's a problem with problem ownership. And the problem is this: a child who knows his problems or the concerns of another concerns himself with none of the problems. It's the Jim Fay, he calls it the no sense in me worrying about it because you're going to worry about it syndrome. You know, I'm not going to worry about this because I know you're going to worry about it for me. And if I don't do anything about it, you're going to solve it for me. I'll just wait for that to take place. So we're going to talk about 3 different kinds of parents tonight. Actually, we'll slip in a 4th one, but we're going to focus on 3 different kinds of parents tonight. And everyone in here, this is going to be one of those equal opportunity offending kind of lessons, because every one of us are going to find our spot and figure out what kind of parents we are. The first one, this was kind of a new term about 20, 25 years ago, but now everybody hears about them now: helicopters. You know, helicopters are wonderful things, especially if you got a life flight kind of a situation where you can swoop in, you can pick up whatever problem there is, you can fly out. Helicopters can get into tight spaces, tighter spaces than airplanes can. They can go to more remote places that ambulances may have a hard time getting to. I mean, they are really good about swooping in and getting out on a rescue mission. That is, except when it comes to parents. You know, some parents kind of act like helicopters. They protect their kids from the teachers, from other kids, from the rest of the cruel world. Now, is it because they don't love their kids? No, they do love their kids. They don't like to see their kids hurt. But what they do is they go in to take care of the problems. The key words for helicopters: rant, rave, and rescue. Just like helicopters that make a lot of noise, blow a lot of wind around, helicopter parents make a lot of noise too. Now we're going to talk about helicopter mom. It could be helicopter dad, but just for this illustration, we're going to use helicopter mom, which, by the way, and this is going to be one of those challenges that I hope you'll take me up on, because I gave the challenge to a class one time and they didn't believe me at first. And then some of them took me up on it and they said, yeah, you're right. When school gets started, I want you to go up to the school someday whenever you've got some time in the morning, and I want you to watch the helicopters land.
Lunchtime.
Lunchtime, yeah, about 15 or 20 minutes after the bell rings, and then around lunchtime. Because what you'll see is a bunch of parents who are showing up with books and backpacks and musical instruments and lunch and lots of other things.
So we have this, can I tell a story about that?
Sure.
I have this one mom at our school, and her kids are so picky that she literally goes to a restaurant every day and picks up their food and brings it to us for lunch every single day. And now is one of them's going to middle school. She's got 2 schools to go to, and she'll still do it every single day she goes to. I'm like, I'm gonna take you out every day. I told you guys, but you can bring me
I
to
found at my school that does that, that might be the person.
Could be.
I'm like, you what?
Every day to go
Because
to.
he won't eat, and I'm like, well, you don't eat.
Yeah.
Who needs Uber? Who needs Lyft? Who needs
I mean,
DoorDash?
she leaves school every single day during her lunch and goes it's taking up the best.
It's expensive.
It is expensive, but
Yeah.
the poor kid's gonna starve.
But yeah,
if you
they
don't
don't,
do
they
that.
won't
That's
eat
cheaper.
anything else, like, even at home, they won't eat anything.
So helicopter mom, little Johnny comes in after school, plops himself down at the table. Helicopter mom, you can hear the rotors start to turn. Oh, Johnny, what's wrong, son? Oh, it's nothing, Mom. Oh, no, tell me what's going on. He says, oh, it's just that I don't have any friends. What? You don't have any friends? Well, what is that teacher doing to help the kids know what a good friend you can be? I mean, does she sit you around at different tables so that you can so other people can get to know what a good kid you are? I mean, when you go out to the playground, does the teacher make sure that you're included with other groups whenever they're playing? And by the way, whenever you're going to lunch, I mean, does the teacher sit you beside people that don't like you, or she kind of move you in places where you can be like, I tell you what, I've got to talk to that teacher about some other things anyway, and so I'm going to go up to school tomorrow and I'll get this fixed for you. And she stops long enough to take a long, deep breath, and then you can hear the wind blowing again. By the way, I haven't seen any friends around here lately. We need to have some friends over here this weekend. So I'll tell you what, right after supper, I want you to sit down, and I want you to we're going to write down a list of friends, 3, 4, 10, something like that. And we're going to list all those friends, and I'm going to get on the phone tomorrow, and I'm going to call their mamas, and we're going to have them over here this weekend for a sleepover, and we're going to show those kids what a good friend you are. Have you met any helicopter parents? Okay, fess up time. Do I have any helicopter parents in here?
Sometimes.
Yeah. We kind of fall into some of those sometimes. Now, Angela may not want me to. See, Angela and I sometimes switched roles, but especially when we were first doing Love and Logic, she was the recovering helicopter mom. And that you love your kids, you don't want them to hurt. But what are the messages that a kid gets whenever a helicopter parent swoops in to rescue them from everything that's going on?
They can't solve their own problems.
And why not? Why can't they solve them?
Because you do it for them.
Yeah. And obviously, you don't think they can. They're not smart enough. They're not capable enough. They're not imaginative enough. They can't solve their own problems.
Sometimes the kids are manipulative because they want to see their parents do that.
They can be. Well, mom's going to handle it for me anyway. I'll just see how pitiful I can be on this one. Well, dad will take care of this. He'll go and he'll make sure they know that this is the way this needs to go. Listen, we're going to talk about another kind of parent in just a minute ago, and I think it used to be pretty evenly split between these two. I am convinced now that we have a generation primarily of helicopter parents.
I disagree.
You think it's the other side?
Lawnmower parents.
Oh, well, we'll talk about the lawnmowers here in just a minute. But the principles for helicopter where I've got to go in and I've got to solve this for you because my kids don't need to hurt and I've got to rescue them from that hurt. And what we do is we rob them of the opportunity to solve those problems. Of course, today it may be this one. Well, the good news is that my parents are no longer helicopter parents. Got the drone up there, just keeping an eye on them. Yeah.
It's wrong parents now.
It's drone parents. We got to keep up with technology here. So that's parent number one that we're going to talk about tonight, those helicopter parents. Now we're going to go to the second one, drill sergeants. Drill sergeants in the Army are really important because whenever you get into certain situations, you don't want to have a committee meeting, decide how we're going to do certain, you've got a situation, you've got to handle it now, you got to handle it fast, you got to be able to take orders, and you need that sergeant there to be able to say, you go do this, you go do that, you go do this. And it works really good in Army situations, maybe not so much with parents. See, the drill sergeant parent, they are the ones that they say, and these are the words they will oftentimes use, do it now, or else. And they're the ones you can also kind of tell them by their posture. They typically have shoulders that kind of go way back, and they throw out their chest. And they oftentimes use their finger, like this, and point, you do it now, or else. Drill sergeants, the key word for them, decree, demand, and dictate. Little Johnny comes in after school, plops down at the table, announces he doesn't have any friends. What do you mean you don't have any friends? Drill Sergeant Dad has come into the room, sees Johnny down there. Johnny, sit up. Don't slouch like that. Now, tell me, why don't you have any friends? Now, we can have Drill Sergeant moms. It's all right. We're going to use Drill Sergeant Dad for this one. Hey, come on in. We just talked about y'all, but
Oh.
yeah, no. We'll go back and review here in a moment. But Drill Sergeant Dad comes in and says, what do you mean you don't have any friends? Tell me what you're doing to have good friends. Oh, Dad, no, you tell me. Are you talking to other people? Are you getting to know other people? I mean, are you being friendly with them? Because I know sometimes you just don't like to talk to people and don't like to be friendly. So you tell me what you're doing up there at the school. Dad, no, really, it's nothing. It's just, I just always want the last ones to get picked for the ball team. What? What do you mean you're the last one picked? I told you, didn't I, that you should have gotten involved with Little League last summer, because last summer you would have gotten in there, you'd have gotten some training, you'd gotten some skills, and then you wouldn't have been one of the last ones picked on the team. And then he stops and he takes a big, deep breath. And you can hear, it's still a lot of noise, but it's more like a machine gun that starts going off. He says, by the way, I haven't seen a lot of friends around here lately. Why haven't you been inviting your friends over here? I tell you what you're going to do. Right after supper, you're going to go up to your room. You're going to write down a list about three or four friends that you're going to invite over this weekend, and then you're going to call them tonight. You're going to get them over here so they can see what a good friend you are. And I said, but Dad, I really thought we were going to fix my bike. Oh, I see. That's the way it's going to be. You don't want to have any friends. You just want to sit around the house doing stuff all day. Well, I can't do anything with you. What do you hear from Drill Sergeant Dad? What are some of the messages he's giving little Johnny?
Lost cause at the end.
What's a lost cause? He is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The message is pretty close to what a helicopter parent is. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You can't solve your own problems. You got to do it. You got to have me here to be able to solve these. And if I don't solve them for you, they're not going to get solved. And by the way, you're going to have to do it my way, because you can't come up with any way that's going to solve these problems. Yeah, drill sergeants. Now, any recovering drill sergeants in here? Drill sergeant.
I am recovering.
Oh, you are an active drill sergeant. See, I was the recovering drill sergeant parent, especially starting off. I've had my helicopter days, but I was the recovering drill sergeant parent. You do it my way. You do it now, or else.
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
When I get exasperated.
Yeah.
I don't use the finger though. I use the knife hand.
The knife hand.
Knife hand.
Well, like
This
this.
is the knife hand. That's
Oh.
a real military too.
It's like the karate chop.
Sort of. You just don't point.
That's probably a lot more accurate though. Yeah.
That's why I know drill sergeants that use the knife hand.
Yeah.
It's a great success.
So there's the helicopters, there's drill sergeants. Now, Angela mentioned this other one, and so I'm going to go ahead and throw it in. This has been this new parent that's come up, especially in the last decade or so, and that is the lawnmower parent. And I really think what the lawnmower parent is, I've observed lawnmower parents, they kind of combine some of the qualities of both of them. I'm going to solve this for you, and I'm going to mow down whatever obstacle is in your way. Or people, yeah, people are oftentimes the obstacle. It could be teachers, it could be administration, it could be friends, it could be anybody that gets in your way. I'm going to go out in front of you and I'm going to mow them down. And I'm going to solve this for you. And every time we steal the kids' opportunity to be able to learn how to solve problems. No wonder we've got a group of kids that go off to college and they get faced with real world adult-sized problems and they're paralyzed because they don't know what to do. They either got helicopters who are swooping in and rescuing them. They got drill sergeants who are telling them, you're going to do it this way or else you got to rely on my way of doing it. Or you've got these lawnmower parents who are doing both, swooping, getting them up on their lawnmower, then mowing down the obstacles as they go. And there's a lot of destruction that happens with the lawnmower parents. Like lawnmower parents, I love what a couple of folks said about it. Lawnmower parents go to whatever lengths necessary to prevent their child from having to face adversity, struggle, or failure. Instead of preparing children for challenges, they mow obstacles down so children won't experience them in the first place. One parent said, lawnmower parents combine, they say, love your kids enough. Instead of being a lawnmower parent, love your kids enough to give them the tools they need to function as a member of our society. And this one said, I'm a lawnmower parent. My kid's out there right now mowing the lawn as I type this. How do we do that? Let me tell you the other kind of parent we're going to be talking about. And that one is the consultant. Now, when you first hear about consultants, some people say, oh, here we go back with the wimpy parenting again. You're not being firm, you're not being decisive, you're not being rescuing. Let me tell you about consultants. Consultants are those folks that they come in, they kind of blow around, they give some advice, and then they leave. And it's up to a business to decide what they're going to do with what the consultant came in and told them to do. Now, as a parent, what that looks like is someone who is there to give advice, let the children make a decision with the idea that they're going to let the child make as many mistakes as possible while that price tag is still affordable. The key words for the consultant: counsel, coach, and consult. And it's not that you're just going to kind of leave them to whatever decisions to solve this problem that they can come up with. You're going to be right there along their side every step of the way. The problem is, and I told you we're going to talk about several techniques. They're on this brown piece of paper, several tools to put in your tool bag. There is one tool I did not put on that sheet that is probably the parent's most important tool. Okay, second most important tool. But it's also the parent's hardest tool. Because if you want to be a consultant parent, you got to have the tool of being able to keep your mouth shut. It is hard. Why is it so hard? Why is it hard for parents to keep their mouth shut? I'm agreeing with you because I'm one of those parents.
We just love them. We want to help. Yeah.
I think we like being right.
We like being right.
Yeah.
And we think that if we'll talk long enough, that they'll finally get it.
Amen.
Preach it.
Don't get it.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's hard. I mean, I had to put my hand up one out to walk in my room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, take it.
Don't say anything right now. Because oftentimes parents, there's not a situation that can't be made worse. There's not a situation that cannot be made worse by too many words out of a parent. Little Johnny comes in, plops himself down at the table. This time consultant mom comes in. Johnny, you don't look like you're happy. Anything wrong? Oh, it's nothing. Okay. Well, you can let me know if you want to. Well, it's just that I just don't have any friends. She said, oh man, that's a problem. That's got to be really sad not having any friends. Well, have you thought about what you might do about it? I don't know. I don't know what to do. She said, oh, that's even worse. Having a big problem like that, not knowing what you're going to do about it, that is hard. I've been there. That's hard. And then she might say something like, you know, Johnny, I've known of folks that they felt like they didn't have any friends, and I could share with you sometime some of the things that they tried, to make friends. Just let me know if you'd like to know sometime. And that's where she stops. Now, what did that consultant parent, what was the message she just gave to John?
I'm here for you if you want to talk.
I'm available. I am here. And I'll even let you be in charge of the conversation. What else did he hear?
ideas to help.
I'm not gonna leave you alone, because, I mean, I've got some things I can help you with, just let me know. Other messages.
I trust you. with everything.
Yeah, what Johnny just heard also in all of that was, there's a problem. But it's a problem that belongs to you. And it's gonna be a problem that if it's gonna be solved, it's gonna be one that you're gonna have to solve. But you know what? I trust that you can do that. I think you're strong enough. I think you're smart enough. I think you're persevering enough. I think you can handle this problem. I'm not gonna leave you alone though. I'm gonna be right here right beside you. I'll be here to help. But if it's gonna be solved, it's gonna be yours. You see the different messages that each of those kind of parents gives. One is an empowering message. You can handle this. I'm going to help. The other is one that just completely takes away the courage of the child. You can't handle this. You've got to have me to fix it. And so we be consultant parents. The problem with consultants, though, with parents being consultants is it's really true that sometimes I have this hesitancy to help my kids solve their own problems because whenever I was young, I didn't do a very good job. And how am I going to be there to help them with the problem whenever I couldn't handle it myself? Let me share with you Nildo Orflitz. He says, at great expense, I've just hired Nildo Orflitz as a consultant. He will increase our productivity hereby calculating how much time is actually wasted. So Dilbert goes along with Nildo and says, well, Nildo, how did you acquire your credentials as a consultant? Degree in business, management, HR, PR, psychology? He says, on-the-job training. What does that mean? Dilbert says, let me guess. You've been fired from every job you've ever had for wasting time. And he says, welcome to the wonderful world of consulting. See, what consultant parents understand is the best solution for every problem resides in the skin of the person who owns the problem. I can try to solve problems for other folks, but you know, they may work, they may not work. You know, but go ahead and try. The best solution to every problem resides within the skin of the person who actually has the problem, because that's the motivation to get it done. And you know, whenever you don't always have the answer, well, that's where those SLOs come in handy too, because you can use your significant learning opportunities to bless someone else. Kind of like this mom, she says, now that's an interesting observation, but you haven't lived to see a popular trend go out of fashion yet. Well, parents have a little bit. So we can be that kind of a parent.
To go out of fashion and
Come back, yes.
Bell bottoms are back again, apparently.
Oh,
Yeah. You know, I enjoyed bell bottoms in the day, but I'm so glad they were gone. I don't think I want to go back to them.
The 90s are back.
So tell me, how do you know whose problem it is? Because after all, there are a lot of problems out there our kids are going to have. And some of them may actually be problems that we have too. Some of them are just problems that we need to let the child have and let them deal with. So how are we going to be able to tell the difference between those two kind of situations? Let me give you a few guidelines here. Number one, when we're upset about the child being upset, then it's probably the child's problem. If I'm upset because the child's having a rough time with something, then that's going to be the child's problem. Now, it's difficult. I mean, it really hurts. I mean, as a parent, you hurt for your kids. You don't want them to go through difficulties. But it's their problem. It's one that they have to solve. Ask yourself, what's going to happen to me personally if this problem doesn't get solved? If the answer is nothing, then it's the child's problem. And that's the one who needs to be solving it. But notice how we as parents often try to twist a problem around so that it's ours. You know, the kids are going to go outside the house without their coat. They're going to get cold. They're going to get sick. Then I've got to take them to the doctor, and I've got that expense, and then I've got to stay home from work. Now, see, we try to take our kids' problems, and we just kind of have this need to put them back on ourselves because we want to be the rescuers. We want to be the saviors in this situation. Now, there are times the kid's problem might be our problem. If the child is getting up late in the morning and making me late to work, well, that's my problem because I'm the one that's suffering the consequences. But if the child's getting up late and not getting to school or wherever they need to be on time, that's their problem. And one of the things we got to remember that if it's making a problem for us, it should become a problem for the child. So we've got to turn that around and be able to let that be the child's problem. Thoughts, comments, questions? I'll play you a story here in just a minute where it's going to illustrate what we're talking about in a very, it's one of those extreme ways, you know, where if this dad can do it in the situation he was in, then we can kind of back it off a little bit and do it in those situations that we have from time to time. Because we've got to remember that allowing children to solve their own problems, it presumes this implicit and basic trust that their behavior will change as they learn from their experiences. I mean, we want our children to develop this attitude that says, I can find solutions to my problems. Now, how do we do that? Well, I'm gonna play this story. This is, again, this is Charles Fay, and he tells about a parent that he came across and how they solved this problem. So.
Because the dad called me from Kansas and he said, you know, I learned love and logic. He said, now I can handle anything my kid pulls. I said, I wouldn't be so sure. He said, oh yeah, I'm sure. He said, I've done it. He said, the police called me, they arrested my son for shoplifting. All the way down there, I'm thinking, man, I got to be ready to give him a heavy dose of empathy. And then I have to have the courage to hold his feet to the fire. And are we all okay that that's a metaphor, by the way? Just want to make sure. See, the hardest thing, well, tell me this. Is it always pretty easy to know what the neighbors ought to do about their misbehaving kid? That's pretty easy to figure out. What's hard is to figure out what to do with ours, because right away we start to block. We start to lose our courage. We know what to do, but it just won't come to mind because we don't want the kids to see us as being mean. Have you ever seen the dad who wants to hold the kid accountable, but a mother who would rather grandstand, look really good to the kid and say, no, we can't be so rough, or vice versa? A dad who doesn't have the courage to hold the kid accountable? No. It happens often. Does that mean because they're awful parents? Or is it because they really love their kids and they just don't want to be seen as being mean? Which is it? We love our kids, right? But love and logic gives us that tool where we can hold kids accountable, where they get to learn the lessons that they really need to learn and not see us as the source of the problem. And one thing we want to do, heavy dose of empathy before we tell them the consequences, right? But how natural is that? Anybody find it natural? No. We were all trained that we should get angry. It's embedded in our subconscious mind through some very special repetition that we had as a kid watching our parents. So don't feel guilty about that. But I'm going to suggest to you, find one empathetic response and use the same one every single time. Make sure it's one you can say with true, genuine empathy and compassion. And don't waver, just use the same one. And you'll find that your kids and everybody else in the world is so starved to hear empathy that they don't care what form it takes. But if you will say the same one every time, some magic will happen. See, I use this one with my kids. What a bummer. What a bummer. Some people say, how sad. Some say, oh, doesn't that aggravate you? But I want to say that same one over and over and over. I want this little neural pathway to be created in the brain of my kid that goes directly from my empathetic response. What a bummer. To the kid saying to himself, I'm screwed. Because when he says, I'm screwed, does that say my parent is mean? Yes or no? I didn't hear you. No. What does it say? I'm part of the problem, right? How often do you want him to say that? Over and over and over and over and over, right? Okay, so Daddy's trying to remember that all the way down there. He says, it's going to take a lot of courage for me to do what's right. And he got down to the police station, and this kid is going crazy on him. Dad, don't be mad. I don't know why I did it. Stupidest thing I ever did in my life. Promise me you won't be mad. If you won't be mad, I'll never do anything this stupid again. And Dad starts right in with his what? Heavy dose of empathy. Oh, how can I be mad? This is such a bummer for you. This is so sad. He said, oh, gee, I hope you're strong enough. What? You're going to need to go to court. You're going to need a lawyer. Oh, I hope you're strong enough. But I'll make you a deal. As long as you live in this family, you will never, ever have to hire a lawyer for your father. Because I don't hire them for my kids. Oh, come on, Dad. My friends' parents, they get lawyers for them. I know. See, when your kids start to argue, go into the I know routine. I know. Well, I can't go to court without a lawyer. I know. Well, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Well, what am I going to do? I can't go without a lawyer when I'm in bed. I don't know. But you know, I've been taking this parenting course, and you know what they taught us? They taught us some really interesting things. First of all, they taught us people are happier with choices. I wonder if there's any choices about this. And I thought, oh, I know one. In the state of Kansas, dads can represent their own kids in juvenile court. I could be your lawyer. Of course, I'm not trained. Probably wouldn't do that good a job. Oh boy, I don't know. Well, some kids try the yellow pages. Well, the kid came out pretty soon, and he'd been into the yellow pages, and he'd made a telephone call. He said, Dad, lawyers are a ripoff. He said, what? He said, lawyers are a ripoff. He said, where'd you get that? $600, $600, the cheapest one I could find. You found a lawyer for $600. Now there's a bargain. It's not a bargain if you don't have $600. What am I going to do? I don't know, but remember, I could be your lawyer. And since I'm not trained, I certainly couldn't charge you $600. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do it for half. So then you can have a real lawyer for $6, you could have maybe for $3. He said, I better take you, Dad. I don't have the $600. Wait a minute. You got $300? No, but I'm good for it, man. Raise your hand if you believe that. Dad said, look, I've been taking this love and logic course. I've been learning all this neat stuff. Do you know what else I learned? You never, ever have to be afraid for your kid to make a mistake. Because every mistake can be turned into a wonderful learning opportunity. In fact, the facilitator for the course said, the road to wisdom is paved with what? Mistakes and consequences. But what opens up the child's mind so that he can learn from those? Empathy. So that should be mistakes, empathy, and consequences, right? He said, why don't I advance you the $300? Okay? Now, why don't I teach you how to loan your money to other people? How would you like to know how to loan money to other people and actually get your money back? Let's go down to the office supply store. Why? Oh, they sell legal forms down there. And they went down to the office supply store. They looked through the forms. They got a promissory note. They brought it home. The kid is filling it out at the kitchen table. Pretty soon he says, oh, get it. You don't get what? What's this part? Security for the loan. Oh, now that's an important part. That's where you list all your personal property that you want me to repossess if you don't pay the loan back by, now what did you write on that note up there where it says due date? Oh, September 1st. Here's how it works. You list all the stuff. It has to be worth something I can sell and hawk for $300, right? You list it there, and then I take that stuff and I put it somewhere where it's safe, so it'll still be worth $300 on September 1st. And then when you pay the loan back, I just write canceled, and I give you your stuff back. Well, what if I can't pay it back? I'm not writing in a bunch of stuff then. I'm not going to give you all my stuff just because I have trouble paying back my loan. All kids have trouble paying back their loan. Ooh, I'm sure glad you told me that. Well, I guess I don't want to be your lawyer after all. He says, oh, fine. That's the way you want to be. Kid needs a little help and his dad bails out on him. Fine, Dad, you are. And he stomps off. Pretty soon he comes back, he's got some stuff written in there. He's got an attitude now, throws it down on the table. Hope you're satisfied now. None of my friends would have to put up with stuff like this. Dad looked at the legal form and he said, hey, we're going right along there. Got a due date, September 1st, got some, oh. Will this collateral bring $300 at a pawn shop? Trust me, it's good stuff, Dad. Oh, I think I trust the signature of the pawn shop guy a little bit better. Oh, fine. What am I supposed to do? Just drag all this stuff? Well, that'd be a good idea, yeah. He stomps off. He gets back from the pawn shop. Is there smoke coming out of his ears now? They don't give you anything for that stuff down there. He goes in, he writes back a whole bunch more stuff. Brings up, hope you're satisfied now. Dad looks at it and he says, hey, doing pretty good. Let's see, we got a due date, got good collateral. Oops, that's not a legal signature. Dad, that's my signature. You know it is. Yes, but the court doesn't know it is. It has to be notarized. Oh, fine. How do I do that? Well, you take this down to the bank, and there's an official down there called the notary public, and they will, if you give them some money, they will put a seal on it that says that's in fact. Well, how much? What's the answer, everybody? I don't know. Yes, if you want your kids to become smart, you have to be willing to look dumb. It forces them to think. So who's going to tell this guy how much it's going to cost to get the signature notarized? The bank. Well, he comes back. He's upset. He's got everything done. He throws it down. I hope you're satisfied now. Is Dad doing a pretty good job holding his feet to the fire? Is he milking this situation for all he can get out of it? If he does that, is he going to have to do it as often? Yes or no? No. Okie doke. So he says, well, let's see. Got a good legal form, good due date. All right. Good collateral. All right. Legal signature. The big day came to go to court. He stood before a very imposing judge who said, young man, do you have legal representation? I think I do. My dad's doing it, but he's not a real lawyer, but he's only charging me half. And he tells the judge all about the promissory note, filing it with the Secretary of State's office. Young man, how do you plead in this matter? And his dad stood up to be his lawyer. And his dad stood up to say, Your Honor, my client wishes to plead guilty. But he's a good boy, Your Honor. He's a fine young man. He's a good boy who made a mistake. And good boys make mistakes. And both he and his father know that mistakes are the foundation of wisdom if you live with the consequence. And he stands before the court today prepared to face any consequence that the court might deem wise. And he stands before the court today to offer restitution. And he stands before the court today to plead for a 12-month deferred judgment. Now, Your Honor, I have talked to my client until I'm blue in the face and he just does not get it. I tell him, you do not go into court asking for a 12-month deferred judgment. You go into court, you try to sneak in a 6-month deferred judgment. If the judge won't buy it, then you go for the 12 months. But my client says, no, absolutely not. He refuses to play games with the court. He is here today to prove that he can keep his nose clean for 12 months. So ruled. Step back, young man. Get that loan paid back by, what is the date? Oh, September 1st. We will enter that into the court record. You get that paid back by September 1st, or you're going to be right back in this courtroom. If you come back into my courtroom again, you bring your toothbrush. Next case. And a very stunned 12-year-old who had no idea that his daddy had written a letter to the judge, said, don't make it easy. If he can learn this lesson now, he'll be better prepared to be a good man later. That boy left that courthouse totally stunned, no words coming out of his mouth, rode home in stunned silence, not one word. They drove into the driveway. He got out of the car, he went into the house, and actually, get this, hung up his coat. Looked up at his dad and said, Dad, you know what? You were awesome in court today. That was so great. And Dad said, look at that. My kid likes me better now than before I held his feet to the fire. He said, I've always been afraid to hold my kids accountable. I've always wanted to hold everybody else accountable. I wanted to make excuses. Have you heard the kind of excuses parents make today? All kids will drink. Have you heard that nonsense? All kids will try drugs. All kids, those are excuses. Those are cop-outs so that we don't have to face the pain of having to face what we need to face with our kids. And this dad didn't do that, did he? He said, my kid is going to get a good chance at life because I was strong enough and I had the courage today to hold him accountable, but I could have never done it if I had not known there's a way to do it. And what is that way? Empathy, heavy dose of empathy. He said, I think he's better prepared for life. Would you agree, audience? Yes or no? Yeah, he's going to be a better man as a result. He said, and one more perk. He was so scared he wouldn't get his loan paid back. In desperation, he learned how to make money. He started carrying a ladder around the neighborhood, going to the elderly people and say, I know you don't like to get up high, but I do, and I can get up on the roof, and I can clean out gutters, and I can do all this kind of stuff. He's paid back his loan. He has money left over. The next time he needs money, he's got a way to do it. And my kid is a better kid today, and will be a better man someday, because I did that time muster up the courage. And isn't that the hardest part, is mustering up that courage?
Did you hear how he kept the problem in the kid's court? Everything was the kid's problem. The kid has to solve it. The kid has to take care of it. But Dad was there every step of the way to help him do so, like a good consultant. Now, this week, your job is to offer more choices within limits. Find as many little choices as you possibly can. And then also this week, try to catch yourself acting like a helicopter or a drill sergeant or a lawnmower or a consultant. Just become more aware of what you're doing, and then practice that really difficult skill sometime of keeping your mouth shut. Now, next week, when we get together, we're going to take this a step further, because if you want to be a consultant parent, there are some things you can do with your kid to help work through those problems and keep it in their, keep it as their problem. And so next week, we will do a step-by-step guide of how you come alongside your kid with empathy, with consequence, and help them sort out their own problems. But this week, kind of do some self-evaluation. How are you doing as being a helicopter drill sergeant, a consultant, and then see how hard it is to keep your mouth shut sometimes.